amazing Australians and the story of their lives. You're tuned to Lots to Chat About with Rosemary Peterswald.
Hello and welcome, listeners. Ever since I first came to Australia in 1954 and lived in a remote part of the country, I've been very much aware of the Royal Flying Doctor Service, known as RFDS. It's a wonderful national charitable healthcare and 24-hour emergency service for those who live in rural and remote parts of Australia. RFDS uses the latest in aviation, medical and communications technology and a broad-reaching ground fleet. It is supported by a vast number of volunteers and supporters, and it provides a lifeline for those that live, work and travel in rural and remote Australia, and has been doing so for over 9 decades. My guest today is Kate Rule, the Supporter Relationship Specialist from RFDS. Welcome, Kate.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, so tell me, Kate, where did you grow up? Are you a country girl? Yes, if so, from what part of our remote Australia?
Yeah, I am a country girl. I'm not a Western girl, but I am from North Queensland.
Yes.
I grew up in Ingham in North Queensland, but have quite a lot of family connection to Western Queensland, Bowen, and the country way of living, I guess.
Which would be a wonderful asset, I would imagine, in your role with the RFDS.
Yes, absolutely. And having grown up with so many generations of family who have lived and worked remotely, the Flying Doctor was certainly part of our upbringing. We just always knew about the service and heard, particularly my grandparents, talk about it with such reverence. They really just admired the Royal Flying Doctor Service, had connection, and they were supporters for their whole life as well.
So, Kate, now you told me before, actually, that they do live in a very remote part of Australia, I think, isn't it, or on a big property, the property that your family's owned for 100 years, did you say, or a long time?
Yeah, a long time. So my grandmother grew up in a property cattle station called Pretty Bend, and that's west of Bowen, and it's still in my grandmother's family today. And then also my grandfather's side, which is where I grew up, was a cane farming town in Ingham, and the property's still maintained and lived on by my family.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Well, Kate, now, before there was the Royal Flying Doctor, there was little medical help, was there, for people who lived in places far from the cities, like your relations. And if they were seriously ill or injured, they had to travel hundreds and hundreds of miles by horse, cart or camel to reach a doctor. They often died before they got there. But the founder of the RFDS, John Flynn, he heard a particular story, didn't he, about a cattleman that had been very severely injured and set out actually to try and help him, didn't he? But didn't get there quite in time.
No, and back then, Reverend Flynn actually used camels to get around, and he would provide medical and spiritual care to people as far as he could get on camel. But yeah, he had a real admiration for people living remote and a real wish and need to be able to get to them and make sure that he could provide that care. And I know that he was very moved by the plight of people that were living remote, and his whole passion and his whole vision was about removing that tyranny of distance.
Yes.
So it inspired him to create what is now an incredibly well-functioning organisation.
And look, if he knew 90 years down the track that it's still going so prolifically and all around Australia, Kate, is it?
Yes, it is, yeah. We operate state-based because each state has very different needs.
Yes.
Some states predominantly use road vehicle. Queensland and WA, we have a very vast distance to get across, so we use fixed-wing aircraft. Each state has different needs. We do operate as a federation, but each state does operate with their own board and staff.
Yes.
Yeah, but we do work collaboratively.
Well, there'll be a different need in each state, isn't it? I mean, I lived in Tasmania for 35 years, but it's obviously a different kettle of fish rescuing someone from the wilderness of Tasmania than there is in the outback of Queensland.
Yes, absolutely.
But a similar rescue operation
Yeah.
that is needed, but just with different, probably different aeroplanes, I would imagine.
Yes, different aeroplanes.
Yep.
Some of our fellow states use jets.
Right.
They can get somewhere fast. They don't have to have such a big intensive care unit inside
Yes.
as Queensland. So we use the larger aircraft, fixed wing, but they can still land and most often land on very remote dirt airstrips.
Right. Isn't that wonderful? Now, you've been with them for 4 years, so tell me what your role involves.
So my role, I always say it's the best job in the world. I get to listen and hear all of the incredible stories from our patients and from our staff, and then connect those stories with the people who provide support. So we are very lucky that we have such an incredible community of supporters, but we need them. We need
Yes.
people to continue supporting the RFDS. It's vital. It's a big part of our very expensive operation, being medicine and aviation. And so I get to connect those really incredible and kind-hearted Queenslanders that support us with the stories that matter and show them the impact of their support.
Right. You must have supporters all around Australia, really.
We do, and we do have some volunteers. We have an incredible group of people in our auxiliaries,
Yeah.
and so they help to fundraise for us. They're groups of really incredible men and women who will get together and host fundraising activities and do wonderful things like that to support us. We also have a really vast range of supporters who help our clinicians. So when they go out to clinics, when they go out remote, they'll have these volunteers that dedicate their lives as well to supporting the RFDS. They'll unlock community halls. They'll get morning teas ready for when the RFDS crews come, when they have, quite a lot of people lined up to have their fortnightly or monthly clinic visit.
Yeah.
So we have voluntary support through that. And we also have a large number of people who host our medical chests, which is another really innovative yet very long-running part of the RFDS.
Right.
So we have medical chests.
You're saying medical chest.
Medical chest.
Right.
Yep. So they are, it looks quite rudimentary.
Yes.
And it started way back in the 40s, but they're a green box and they have levels in them with medications.
Right.
And they're designed to help either support someone who's going through a particular illness and they need urgent care, or sometimes to help keep someone alive until the RFDS can get there. And that connects with, they will call our RFDS telehealth doctors,
Right.
which runs 24/7. And the doctor will be able to talk through the patient and then the person supporting them with this medical chest and say, I need you to go to tray 3, pick out product 42, just for an example, and administer either a pain relief medication or an antibiotic, anything like that. It's a really incredible part of the RFDS history.
Right.
And they are trusted into certain community members who will have a lock, a key, everything that they need to keep that running. And they also will help us check expired medication and look after that. So it's another way that the RFDS continues with that original spirit
Right.
of people supporting their fellow people in the outback.
Right. But say I'm living now absolutely, kilometres these days, kilometres and kilometres from anywhere or any community centre or whatever. Do you give a really remote property that chest, or is it got to be in the hands of a sort of respected community person?
A lot of our properties have them. Yeah. So
Right.
there's mining sites. There's quite a few
Yes.
station hands that will take care of that for us. There's hundreds of them throughout Queensland, and there's thousands throughout Australia.
Right.
And they almost look identical to what they did 70, 80 years ago. But now instead of being made of wood, they're made of metal. And there's a few other improvements. And we're looking to the future to start augmenting that into something a little bit different. But it's an incredibly effective form of healthcare
Yes.
when people are living remote and they just don't have the option to duck down to the emergency department.
Right. Now, of course, we've got mobile phones and we've got phone reception in most areas. But back when John Flynn decided to do this, of course, there was no way of really, you couldn't just go and pick the phone up and ring, could you? So what happened then was the the two-way radio, wasn't it, that came in?
Pedal radio.
Yes, and that was people's only way of contacting.
Yes, so another very innovative and Australian invention, the pedal radio that was created by Alfred Traeger.
Yes.
It's, a wonderful invention that really connected people in the bush with healthcare and also social care as well.
Yes, and it, of course, following on from that was School of the Air.
Yes.
Which is a wonderful thing for people that are in remote areas.
Yes, absolutely. And back then, children who were living on properties, those that didn't go to boarding school in particular,
Yes.
they were very isolated from everything, but they were isolated from their friends. So a lot of children grew up quite shy, quite reserved. And so School of the Air, yes, it opened up the doors for education, but it also opened up the doors for socialisation
Right.
and helping these children and their families become more connected with people living like them, even though they might not have been in the same community.
Yes.
It was a continued presence for them to be able to chat to and form a connection with. So I always love the idea of School of the Air opening up that socialisation and education and healthcare,
Yes.
three of the fundamental parts of someone's well-being. So, these inventions that even though they are from so long ago, they're still completely vital. And we have, yes, other ways now. We're not
Yes.
using the pedal radio anymore, but School of the Air still continues in a new format now. There's the internet and that has opened up, but it's still at its core, the RFDS, School of the Air, these things are opening up, making sure that people can live remote and do what they want to do and feed our Australian way of living.
Yes.
And still have fulfillment and enjoyment and living life as healthy and happy as they can.
It's just, it is a wonderful organisation. My uncle flew the first airmail to Australia from England and
wow.
Ireland, and he flew flying boats at that stage in the 1930s. But to see now, sort of what sort of aeroplanes are flying across the world, of course, but what sort of planes mostly do you use now, Kate? Are they all mostly fixed wing or?
Yes, so RFGS Queensland, we do use fixed wing, and they're all Beechcraft King Airs. There's a variation. We have some 200s, 260s, and 360s, which doesn't mean much when you're outside of aviation. But the 200s are our workhorses. So they're flying out west. They're transferring people between regional hospitals. They're landing on short airstrips, dirt airstrips. Our B360s were introduced 2 years ago.
Yes.
So and from the incredible support of our supporters, Queensland Health, government, we do get support from them as well. And they are fantastic for delivering people across the coast and making sure that they can get people to the tertiary hospitals as quickly as possible. They have some incredible mechanics in them to keep our patients really safe and comfortable. They have automatic air bridge.
Yes.
They're really making sure that the comfort of the patient going into a significant experience in a tertiary hospital is as comfortable as possible. But all of our aircrafts are intensive care units in the sky, and they are specifically brought into Australia, and then they're modified at this wonderful facility in Caloundra called Helimods, where they custom make them to the RFDS needs. So they essentially pull everything out and then start from scratch under consultation with our nurses and doctors and pilots, and making sure that they are fulfilling the needs of our patients. So when you get in, they're quite small. They're smaller than I expected. You can't stand fully in them. Our nurses often operate on their knees.
Right.
They have 2 stretchers. They can help anyone get to where they need to go with any medical support. So we have really specially made equipment such as ventilators. There's ultrasound equipment. The staff and the crew all have specific headphones that they can connect with specialists in our tertiary hospitals.
Right.
So if they have someone coming in with a severe medical emergency, they can talk them through so that when they go to a tertiary hospital or a hospital in Brisbane, Townsville, Brockhampton, they can say, this is what's happening, and they can have that continued care from the moment they arrive on scene to the moment they are transported to a tertiary hospital.
Right. So they can land. I mean, most outback stations and whatever would have somewhere where they could land. I lived in Papua New Guinea for quite a while and worked for an airline company, not as a pilot, but just as a support crew. And there were some very, very difficult airstrips like Tarpini, which was virtually horizontal to get in and out.
Wow.
But there were planes, Cessnas, I think they were, Aztecs. And so your planes basically can get into most places?
Yes, they do have to land on an airstrip. So because they're a fixed wing, we're not landing on the side of a cliff or anything too treacherous like that. But there are thousands of airstrips around Queensland, and hundreds of them are maintained specifically for RFDS use.
Right.
And a lot of property owners and people living remote, they might have their own plane that they use for their needs for the station, or perhaps that's their transportation that they can use. But the RFDS will land on nicely maintained, but pretty much any airstrip. So There's a lot of red dirt airstrips that are just bread and butter for the RFDS. There's no lighting out there, so a lot of them are lit using kerosene torches or flares, we call them. There's numerous stories of sunshine milk containers with a roll of toilet paper covered in diesel and set alight and put along the side of the airstrip, so that acts as the runway lights.
Right.
So our pilots are very...
I was going to say, I mean, we've talked about the medical side, but you obviously need some brilliant pilots as well.
Absolutely. RFDS pilots are some of the most technically savvy and incredible pilots out there.
Yes.
They fly solo, which is not something that happens very often.
No.
So they're a solo piloted aircraft. They need to have a set number of hours flying at nighttime, and they're going into places where there is no light. I mean, if you go even west of Toowoomba, you can see the stars. It's a different experience out there. Some of these towns, there's not even street lights. I was in Ullo in Western Queensland a year or so ago, and it was incredible. We did a test of some new diesel lanterns, and as soon as the sun went down, you couldn't see the person in front of you. It was incredible. And so to have communities come together and do this. And like I said earlier, we have people volunteering to help support the RFDS in a number of ways.
Right.
The people who maintain these airstrips, they're doing it for their own good and for the good of their community. And then also the people that will maintain and store whatever lighting they use. Sometimes it's solar, but often it's a diesel lantern, a small diesel lantern. They will go out when they know the RFDS is coming. They will lay them out in a set way, and then they will watch the RFDS flight come in. The town will often get together and support with either extra lighting with their utility vehicles, and then when the RFDS goes, they'll pack it all up and ready to do it again at another point.
Isn't it extraordinary? I flew recently into Winton, but it was in quite a big aircraft. But I did see, all the surrounding country and whatever there. And it is very, very remote. But people that live in remote places look after each other, don't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That trip that I said that when I went to Ullo, there was a clinic on that day. Yeah. And when I went into the hall to see, there was a wonderful woman there who had baked morning tea. And I said to her, "Oh, is this a special occasion?" And she said, "Oh, yes, the RFDS are coming."
Aww.
But she does that every 2 weeks. So it's, I think it's a fundamental part of her supporting her community. And it just means that people can continue living out there, which, we rely on these people for our food and fibre. So we need to make sure that they experience the same healthcare and comfort and mental health support as well as someone living in the city.
Excuse me. It's just a wonderful network, really, isn't it? Now, you're listening to Lots to Chat About. I'm Rosemary Peterswald, and my guest today is Kate Rule, Supporter Relationship Specialist at the Royal Flying Doctor Service. Now, Kate, I've always thought of RFDS as being solely, a flying operation. However, I believe you've got 292 road vehicles, as well as 87 aircraft, which we've talked about. Which transports hundreds of patients a day. But so you've got quite a big ground fleet as well.
Yeah, so that's mostly in our Victorian and South Australian services. So they operate predominantly by road. Queensland, we do mostly use our fixed-wing aircraft. We do have road vehicles used particularly for our mental health team who operate out of Longreach. But because of the vastness of Queensland, we predominantly use our aircraft. But yes, other states, they almost run RFDS ambulances.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right. And you transport people, but I think we've touched on before, between hospitals and
Yes.
whatever where
Yeah.
necessary.
Yes.
Kate, you've been there 4 years. Is there a particular case that really jumps out at you that you can remember?
Yes, absolutely. One particular story that really touched my heart, and I met the woman who this happened to. It's a wonderful young woman who was in the middle of playing a football game. She was in Rockhampton. She had a very young daughter, and they all lived together with her mother as well. And she was in the middle of playing a football match, and she had a medical episode and fell to the ground and was witnessed by her family. And the RFDS transported her to Brisbane where she had emergency surgery.
Right.
And speaking to her and just hearing how important it was and then connecting with her as a mother and just the feeling of her waking up and then thinking, am I ever going to be able to see my daughter again?
Yes.
What did my daughter see? How was she experienced by this emergency as well? It just really touched on my heart. But there's so many stories. There's another incredible woman who she lives on a remote property and she has 5 children.
Oh,
and I called her to have a chat about her story, and it sounded like there was a bit of commotion behind her. And she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. It's just a little busy at the moment." And I said, "I can call you back." And she said, No, it's fine. We're walking into an RFDS clinic right now." And I said, "Oh, that's fantastic news." And she said, "Oh, yes, I have a 6-week-old."
Oh, really?
And the 6-week-old was going in for her first checkup. And so he was this woman who had travelled to go to her clinic to have her checkup of her 6-week-old baby. It's a whole day adventure. She had her other children in tow. And that really made me think as well, when I had my children and I had my checkup, it was a 5-minute drive down to the local GP. I could make the appointment the day before.
Yeah.
It was so accessible for me. And then hearing this wonderful young woman who was so positive, she'd had her day getting her kids together to go there, and she just was still happy, positive, and just so grateful that she had a close clinic, even though, it was hours away. Yeah. But hearing her story and just seeing how, yes, we have very similar experiences, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a lot more difficult for her.
Oh, of course. And in the old days, of course, well, she wouldn't have had any of that. But as I had my second daughter in Papua New Guinea in a very fairly remote place, and I can really sympathise with many of the mothers that live out, even more remote than that. But it's such a comfort to know that there is help there if needed. But as we said, in the old days, it was camel and horse and cart and whatever. So now I looked at a map of where RFDS flies in Australia. It's a huge, huge network, isn't it, Kate?
Absolutely. Yeah. Particularly Queensland and Western Australia having such a big distance, and, we can't leave anyone behind. So there's a very, very big distance. And each day we get a map of the day before, and it shows us where our flights have been. And every single day when I open it up, it's always as high as Bamaga or Horn Island. There's something happening in Doomadgee or Normanton. Something's happening in Birdsville. There's often 30, 40, sometimes 50 flights the day before. Gosh. And it's just like a zigzag all over Queensland. So, and we have 26 aircraft, and some of those aircraft run our primary healthcare clinics. So they're transporting clinicians to and fro, but a lot of them are picking up patients, supporting someone who has an emergency medical episode or has had a vehicle incident, number of things every single day. 365 days a year, it's always the same. You never know where it's going to be, but each day it's an incredible mishmash of
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. Now, tell us about Oceans to the Outback. because that's where you can run, walk, or cycle to raise money for the Royal Flying Doctor Service.
Yes, Oceans to Outback is my favourite time of the year. I'm actually doing it this year.
Coming now, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So it
Yeah.
started on the 1st of October,
Yeah.
and it's where people can, walk, run or cycle for the RFDS.
Yeah.
Or if they have mobility needs, they can do whatever captures their heart's desire, really. But the whole purpose of it is to make a commitment, do something that challenges yourself while also raising money for the RFDS. I'm walking 87 kilometres this month.
Yeah. And
Which-
how much?
87 kilometres
wow,
this
good on
month.
you.
I've
Yep.
already, I think I've done 23 kilometres, which is a challenge, but it's an incredible activity. We have a whole community of people get together,
Yes.
and we have a great app. People sign up, get a T-shirt, and you can wear that while out and about, showing your support of the RFDS. And we log our kilometres. We chat
Yes.
on a really exciting Facebook group, and the amount of people that do it is phenomenal, and everyone has their own story.
Right.
So there's people who are living very remote that do it. I spoke to a patient earlier this year who her father had an accident on a helicopter out in very western Queensland, and the daughter was walking up and down the airstrip where he had taken off in his chopper to do Oceans to Outback. So she was logging her kilometres in a very personal way. So I'm sure she's doing it again this year, but she did it last year as well. And
How wonderful.
it's a wonderful community connection, but it raises millions of dollars for the RFDS in Australia. So it's just purely from the excitement, enthusiasm and commitment from our supporters. It's a great supporting way, and it's very fun, challenging, exciting.
It sounds wonderful. We are starting to run out of time, Kate, but I just quickly wanted to ask you, I think you run scholarships, do you? Or if people want to come and work with the RFDCA, whether you're a doctor, a pilot, a nurse, or whatever, how do they sort of get in touch with you if they feel this is their calling?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do find a lot of people list the RFDS as a calling for them, or something that's always been aspirational.
Yes.
So our website is flyingdoctor.org.au/QLD, and
Right.
on there's a careers page,
Yes.
and you can see all of the ways that you can enter the RFDS. So our nurses are incredibly skilled. They're often emergency nurses, but every single nurse has to be a midwife as well. And so we do have some pathways there. We do have some incredible scholarships that are supported by some wonderful philanthropic people. We also have all of our information about becoming a pilot for the RFDS,
All right.
which has some requirements, and
Yes.
they're pretty
I would
specialist
imagine so,
requirements.
after what you said.
But a lot of people they will look at that and make that a career goal. And we have a large number of roles. We have a mental health team. We have an incredible corporate office team that look after our analytics, our fundraising, everything to make the operation as efficient and smooth as possible. And so if you go onto the website, you can see all the entry pathways to coming to work for the RFDS.
And is there a section there for volunteers?
Yes, there's a volunteer entry form there.
Yes.
And that goes to our wonderful people and culture services, and they'll be able to be in touch.
How wonderful. So whether you live in the remotest part of Australia or you're in the city, go on to the Royal Doctor Flying Service webpage and see what you can do, either as a volunteer or donating some money, which I'm sure is always
Very welcomed.
accepted, absolutely. Or you might want to make a career. But Kate Rule from the Royal Flying Doctor Service, thank you so much for being my guest today. And thank you, Steve Sparrow, as we should say, for producing. Thank you, Steve.
It was a very interesting little
And
chat.
this program has been recorded in the studios of 4RPH Reading Radio in Brisbane for syndication around Australia, and will be available on my YouTube channel, Lots to Chat About, with Rosemary Peterswald. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much.
Great friends and great chats. That was another Lots to Chat About with Rosemary Peterswald. Stay tuned next week for another amazing chat.